Welcome to Politics Plus with KwaZulu, another episode of our politics session where the news meets insights and passion. Today, we are hosting our Honorable MEC, Mr. Francois Rodgers, Umhlekazi, all the way from Kokstad. Siyawamukela Mhlekazi.
Diyabulela Mageba.
Yebo, siyaphila.
Diyabulela.
We are at Movies Studios with this session. This is where we basically indulge or engage intensively into political complexities, as well as all the other current affairs that are taking place in around our province, as well as the country. And if there's any global interaction as well, we discuss such. But before we even go deeper or further into these conversations, would you kindly introduce yourself, more especially to the viewers that do not know who Mr. Francois is, and just give us a brief of your political journey to your current position as we speak.
Thank you, Mageba, and good day to all your viewers as well. So I'm a born and bred Pietermaritzburg boy. Did my schooling there, and I left Pietermaritzburg in about 1987. I wasn't a very good student at school. Okay. I only did tertiary education much later because I wanted to make money.
Oh, okay.
So I went into business in Kokstad. I still have various businesses in Kokstad, and that was my base. Both my children were born in Kokstad. I still live in Kokstad, and much later did I go to Wits University, and I did municipal finance, as I was a councillor in those days, and public administrations, and ended up with my degrees then. And started as a councillor in Kokstad, and then moved up, spent 2 years in the National Assembly as spokesperson for water and environment, then came across to the legislature, and I've been involved with finance in the opposition benches until last year, where, as you know, we now have a government of provincial unity, and now I'm the head of Treasury as MEC of Finance.
That's very rich, and that's a very straight to the point. And
I'm not rich as a person.
You've always been rich. I mean, that is where we're going to take it from, because when you were narrating this year, I was basically prompted to ask if you're talking about business, because we understand business differently these days. And we are going to talk about that. Was it any sort of, like what you call these days, we suddenly call ourselves business people or going into business if we're getting government contracts and in forms of tenders and stuff? Was it the very same setting back then in 1987 when you ventured into business?
So, Mageba, when I left school, I didn't want to go to university straight away. I went and worked for what was then called the Receiver of Revenue.
Okay.
We call it SARS now.
Yeah.
And I started auditing. We were auditing businesses for general sales tax and PAYE. Gave me a good understanding of how business operates. My first business I started was a bottle store.
Oh, okay.
So it had nothing to do with tenders.
With tenders and all the government aid.
That was my learning curve into business. It was hard because I went in undercapitalized. I didn't come out of a family that gave me a business or gave me money. I had to borrow my money. And it was a difficult journey, but a journey where I learned the value of money and the value of discipline in management.
That's also lovely, because I'll tell you why before we move on to our next topic or session. Before I introduce the next point, is when you mention that you've learned from the opposition benches, you've gained insights into the treasury as perhaps what you call your shadow ministers.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's quite exciting to learn that we now have a Minister of Finance that has done such study from the opposition benches, because what we've normally observed is people will just be thrown away. Will just be thrown into such position. We could be coming from being a principal, then you suddenly become a Minister of Finance. So it excites us. But then again, leading ahead, I'm also learning from your introduction that you are savvy because you understand the value of money, which is very true, because we learn, if it's true, that recently we've just read an article saying that you use the most normal vehicle for your, logistical daily businesses. Meanwhile, some ministers use these very big cars. Yeah. So what guides your usage, or what guides your expenditure, and why is it that you basically opt to use just the normal cars, the normal fleets, while others are so extravagant?
And only one ministerial office. You remember I closed the one in Durban.
Yes.
Because when I took my office, they said I have two offices, one in Maritzburg, one in Durban. Now, I can't split myself into two. So I closed the Durban office, and that saved us 5 million rand. And all the staff were incorporated into my Maritzburg office. But here's the bottom line. If we want to believe in leaders, then leaders need to lead by example. Now, if I'm telling everybody there's no money,
Yes.
there's no money for education, there's no money for health, we're in a difficult situation, but I want to go and drive a BMW X5, or I want to drive fancy cars and I have VIP protectors all over, I'm not leading by example. I am part of the problem. I'm part of the challenge. You'll never see me go to New York. You'll never see me go to London unless there's a specific reason and I come back with a result.
Yeah.
Because here we have it. Just yesterday, the doctors are marching on Natalia. My office is also in Natalia, demanding jobs. Now, the Premier asks me, you must come up with a plan. Well, here's my plan. Stop spending money unnecessarily as government, and then we can employ those doctors. That's the reality.
But I agree, and perhaps you are going to enlighten us and the viewers at home. I agree to all such. You've been in an opposition throughout these years that you've calculated or that you've mentioned, and you've tried tirelessly so to basically, shoot through to govern the country. Now you are here at the position where we've got the JPU provincially and GNU nationally. Would you then say you are doing well, and you are doing explicitly well into trying to change all the disorders, if I can call it that, of the previous administration?
So here's the interesting phenomenon, Makeba, around the government of provincial unity. In the past, you had a government that was made up of one dominant political party, and your MECs were all appointed by that party. Now you have MECs from different political parties, not under one political umbrella.
Yeah.
So I'm not bound by policies of another party. I'm bound by my own principles. And that allows me the freedom which we've never experienced in the past. Because if you had an MEC of Finance that was principled before politics, in the past, a party would recall that person and replace that person. Now that cannot happen. And it allows me to put principle when it comes to the expenditure and the use of money before politics.
Thanks very much. Now, I will basically assert to the fact that I understand that obviously the ministers or even the officials that sit in such offices are not basically bound by the policies of their political parties, but they are bound by the policies of the department itself. So perhaps then you are coming across as if you are saying all the previous ministers or even officials that were there, they were simply deployed. Is that what you are saying? They were simply deployed, and when they get to the deployment offices, their respective offices, then they ignore completely the policies of the departments.
Well, I'm saying when you have one party that's in government, then who does, other than opposition, which is very ineffective? We can howl, we can shout, we can scream. But once you've got that collective, that political collective, it's very difficult for you to get accountability. So when I took over my treasury, for example, my ministry, my predecessor spent 3.5 million rand in 2 months on 3 events. That's how much he spent. Now ask yourself, when was that? It was March and April, just before the May election. Well, it didn't help too much because they didn't do well in the election. 2 offices, all of these fancy vehicles, leasing vehicles. MECs were leasing vehicles costing 16 million rand for those 11 vehicles for 4 months.
But okay, we will get to that because I also want to just go back a little and touch on your political relationships with all the others. But we are going to dwell much into the GPU and all the other prospective plans and implementations that you are perhaps going to propose for the betterment of your department and the province itself. But take us on your upcoming as a politician. You must have had few clashes here and there and few friendships that you've established here and there. And I understand you are a very outspoken politician and you are a very sort of like a friendly person because I understand the dominance of the Democratic Alliance. It was back in 2019 when you did well. Was it in 2019 during those elections? It was your wave. It was your wave that came from Kokstad all the way, that fluctuated all the way throughout the province. And we
From Umzimkhulu. From Ward 18 in Umzimkhulu.
Definitely, we were observing that. So you came across very charismatic back then. And
are you saying I should have gone into the church?
Basically, and you could have made a lot of money. You could have ventured into such business. But the friendships and the engagements with other politicians, that we've had Mr. Zwakele Mngwango here, who I think was at once a very good friend of yours while he was still in the political party. But he came here and he made his presentation, very good presentations about you. We spoke about you. And what would you say about him with this political party hopping? And what would you say got him off the Democratic Alliance?
Look, I can't speak for Zwakele, but I had a very good relationship with Zwakele. In fact, Zwakele was the provincial leader when I was the provincial chairperson. So we had a very good working relationship, and we still have a good relationship. I certainly can't say that I agree with his new political ideology in Action SA, but that's life. You know, I mean, for many years I worked with Begum Tolo in Kokstad. He was the mayor when I was a councillor. We used to fight like cat and dog in council, but I have great respect for Becky, and we've built a good relationship. You know, I think sometimes one needs to put your political differences aside and understand that we're all human, we've all got needs, we've all got ambitions, but at some point you work collectively and you try and address those issues. You go to Kokstad. I was home this weekend again. You know, I feel so proud driving around Kokstad. It's a fairly clean, well-kept, the roads are maintained, streetlights work. Compared to the city that I spend most of my life in, Mzanduzi, you know, Mayor Tobola can take a feather out of the hat from Madigizela, the mayor in Kokstad.
Yeah, but what creates the mess? I mean, the
politics.
Politics. They are unable to set their politics aside. No, that's fine. So what was your relationship with Sindiso Makaka?
I knew Sindiso because I was a councillor in Kokstad at that stage, and he was also in Umzimkhulu. So we built up a in passing relationship, chatting here and there.
Yeah.
And then obviously it was devastating when he was cold-bloodedly murdered. I still remember attending the funeral.
Yeah.
It was quite a volatile funeral, if you remember. Some of the speakers that were there.
Away.
And of course, what's now unfolding, you know, that the state funded the purchase of the AK-47 that killed Sindiso. The vehicle that was used was funded by the state. It's really concerning.
But who killed Sindiso?
If I knew, I would.
Would you say?
Yes, of course I would. Of course I would.
Oh, how come I don't trust you? No, it's okay. Before I even forget, there's this one question that I wanted to ask, very profoundly so, because When I interviewed you during that voter registration campaign, you made mention, you are on record. Actually, I was just showing my team here. You are on record stating that, and that this was even before the election dates were pronounced. You are on record saying that if the DA takes over, you are basically going for those two departments. Then the rest, it's fine. You will go for them. But then those two key departments that you wanted to be under the administration of the Democratic Alliance, which was Public Works and obviously Treasury. Yeah. And that was way before the election took place. Would you then say you would have known way beforehand that there would have been the government of provincial unity?
Look, I wouldn't have known for certain. But our strategy was quite clearly to bring the ANC to below 50%. That was one of our strategies. We'd started working with the IFP, as you remember.
Yes.
We had the relationship
on the
where
No.
Before that. Long before that.
Okay.
We were proactive in the province. So we had a service delivery pact after the last local government elections with the IFP, where there were hung municipalities. We said we would support the IFP, but we wanted positions like MPAC, which is the oversight committee. We didn't want mayors, deputy mayors, speakers. We wanted oversight.
Okay.
And there was a purpose behind that, to build up towards last year's election.
Okay.
Well, we never, in our wildest dreams, thought the ANC would go below 20%. And of course, we never thought that Ngamalala and the MK would come in, with the figures that they got.
Yeah, but what's the interest on this Treasury and Public Works? Why I will go back to the MK and the impacts, and we also want to discuss the MPC charter. What was the key interest? Why Treasury and Public Works?
Well, I think if you look at Treasury, in your home, in your family home where you live, if there's no money, nothing works. You can't put the lights on, you have no water, you can't send your children to school, you can't do anything. So if we need to change the way government operates, the first thing is to focus on the controls around finances. So that's critical, number one. Number two, if you look at public works, it's tied up with infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you want to start building an economy, if you want to start creating jobs, that's one of the portfolios that you can focus on and deliver the results.
Then one will argue, not me, but certain viewers will argue and say, the Democratic Alliance, as it's in its values, to basically control the means of production. In the same fact that you are presenting now, Mr. Rodgers, that if you're controlling the resources, then you are able to control the rest or to influence the rest. So are you then saying it is the same narrative that we learn about on each and our daily lives to say the white monopoly capitalists, which are more associated with Democratic Alliance, will always want to be in control of the means of production? Okay.
You're playing the devil's advocate.
Definitely.
So let me give you an inside story that nobody ever knows. This is the first time I'm making this public. When we went in to discuss the government of provincial unity, the negotiators wanted to give me the Department of Economic Development and Tourism.
Okay.
Now, that's a huge department. That's a huge department with a lot of power and a lot of opportunity. And I said...
And it's a revenue generator.
Indeed. And I said, no, it's not my forte. I would like to do something that I understand. It's got, when it comes to provincial finances, the books are open. It's not like you can't get access to where we're spending the money, how we're budgeting. That information is all there. I can do very little as far as being a white monopoly capitalist in the environment of Treasury. So, I don't think that holds water. And if you look at where we're spending our money, the bulk of our budget, and this budget that's going to come up, we're talking about education, we're talking about health, we're talking about social development. look at how I'm fighting for Ithala. That's certainly not a white monopoly capitalist. That's not the way they would work. A white monopoly capitalist would say to you, let the commercial banks take over Ithala. And we're saying, no, we believe Ithala has a role to play and we need to protect those people that invest with Ithala.
We applaud you because we've been also observing the way you have been playing parts into ensuring that there's an intervention with Ithala. We will get to that, but now we want for a normal person viewing or listening, they will think that's okay. If you are saying you want to be financial savvy, or you want to save some funds for your department, you introduce, they look at it as in an austerity, or what you call austerity measure. If you're going to be shutting down one office because you only specifically need one, then one will ask himself or herself, but what about the people that were working in their office? You just mentioned about 5 minutes ago that you've got doctors that are at Natalia building there, crying loud for job opportunities. And then you are shutting down the office. So what happens with those people that have been servicing that office or working in that office? Because that we're having issues when it comes to employment rates and stuff. So how are you able to balance that, being spending savvy, as well as ensuring that you still give opportunities to people in terms of employment?
So obviously, from my perspective, I would never have shut down an office if there was labor implications and staff were implicated. My office, the ministry, the MEC of Finance's office, all staff are contract staff. They're employed for the term of the political head, 5 years.
5 years.
So at the end of the last term, their contracts had expired. And that then gave me the opportunity to be able to close that and save 5 million rand. That's an enormous amount of money. Now, I can do something with that 5 million rand. I can assist with school uniforms, which I'm about to do in a couple of weeks' time, with a turmeric farm, an emerging agricultural project, rebuilding the Midmar Dam chalets. We've put money into that because it's a tourism, it's an investment area. So, if you can save money in an area where it's not producing the results without affecting labor, you can redirect that money into job creation.
No, it's very hard to create the balance, because then we are saying if there's been 20 people that have been working in that office, so we've got people, we've got 20 people out of their employment now, as far as we understand, that there were contracts where they were only contracted to that administration.
Let me give you another example, if I may, Mageba. In the last financial year, the province spent 1 billion rand, not 1 million, 1 billion rand on S&T and accommodation.
Okay.
That's MECs, that's officials that are traveling and staying in hotels. 1 billion rand. That's an enormous amount. You know what we can do with 1 billion rand? And is a lot of that travel absolutely necessary? I go to some events, which are provincial government events, and there's more officials than public at those events.
Okay.
Then I say to myself, "Hi, boy, man, do we really need all these officials?"
There's basically more service providers than...
No, sorry.
No, I understand what you're saying.
And these are the areas we can work on.
No.
The amount we pay on cell phone contracts in government,
Okay.
it's obscene. There's wastage. And we need to cut the wastage and redirect that money into service delivery and job creation.
No, thanks very much on that one again. Let's move on, because we want to basically get to a point whereby you give us confidence and you give, the society, at least the people of KZN, confidence is into what good projects or good initiatives that your department is basically funding or is basically sourcing. Yeah. But before we even get to that, because this is a political session, the introduction of Umkhonto Wesizwe, which I think makes you sit in the seat or in the position you are in now, did you really not know anything about that? prior to the announcement?
No, we knew about, we were doing polling. We knew about MK and the emergence of MK. And our polling put MK on the map, but certainly didn't put them at 47%. It was well below 47%. And I think that was the fact that MK just captured all of the ANC structures in the province, I think came as a surprise.
On your personal, not as an official or anything of that sort, but on your personal perspective, do you believe in this notion that even at 47%, there's still dissatisfaction with MKP with the votes that have been rigged? Do you believe that there's been any such occurrence?
No, and until I'm given evidence, empirical evidence, it's very difficult to, if somebody stands up and says that they stole our votes.
Yeah.
I think Donald Trump is a good example. Not in this election,
yeah,
but in the previous one. He said everybody stole the votes and he was going to take it to court and he was going to get the election results overturned. We're hearing the same thing here. But where's the evidence? Give us the evidence.
So even with your polling, you still, because you set them, you are saying, you set them right below.
Well below, yeah.
But then they basically surprised us. They surprised everybody.
Indeed.
So there is a possibility that these people could have been sitting at 50 and above. Somehow the systems were manipulated. I'm just saying, taken by the astonishment that they brought through, or even
then give us the evidence. The fact that an IEC officials carried out 2 or 3 boxes of ballots is not going to make the difference between 47% and 51%. Yeah. You need to carry a lot of boxes out of voting stations. And we believe, and the IEC tell us, that those boxes, although they were removed irregularly, they were still counted.
Okay, but on social media we learn that it's multiple and it's many votes, but then it's okay, we move right along.
We must be careful of fake news. Some politicians, they love fake news.
No, it's okay. Let's move right along because now we need to go into current and perspectives. Now, you are here. You are working in the GPU where there is ANC as well. But on your multi-party charter, the whole narrative was to exclude the ANC. But suddenly you are working with ANC. What changed in between the negotiations? Because I understand, I read that very well. It was basically my Bible on those days when I was doing journalism, that all those parties that were subscribing to the multi-party charter, they were all totally against the ANC. So what was the sudden change?
You must remember the multi-party charter was done at a national government level. We weren't signatories to that multi-party charter in KwaZulu-Natal. It wasn't part of the narrative. You must also remember, go back and look at the time frame. We formed the government of provincial unity before the government of national unity was about a week to 10 days before it happened. There were delays in the entire discussion there. But I can answer it on a global level, not the provincial level. So what were the possibilities? We could then say, well, the ANC is in government. We're going to step back. We're not going to be part of a government of unity. And we'll then allow the EFF and the MK to come in and work with the ANC. So it was a case of, which was the worst scenario? Taking on the ANC.
Which was the better enemy?
No, yeah.
Basically.
Knowing that they already weakened versus, the as John likes to call it, the Doomsday Alliance.
Okay.
Remembering in KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC are not the biggest party. The IFP in the government of provincial unity is the largest party. Then it's the ANC, then it's the DA.
No, I understand your explanation, but it still, up until now, it still surprises the most of us that there was a sudden change of, assertions towards this.
I think
because seriously, but on your honest self.
I think the other thing you've got to look at is, what did the voters tell us?
they no longer want the ANC.
They clearly told us they don't want the ANC.
Yes.
As the sole governing party. They gave the DA its support, they gave the IFP its support, and they gave various other parties their support.
Yeah.
But the ANC did no longer get a majority. Now, you've also got to say, well, what's on the voters' minds? Then you've got to say to yourself, okay, we took the option of going and working with the ANC. What did it do for the country? Straight away, it created hope. The economy started turning around and things started to improve. It was almost like we'd shifted back to 1994 and people were hoping that there would be change.
Yeah, no, true. We follow politics very closely, Francois. The reason I'm saying that is because if you're saying the hopes were then retained, but whose hopes? Because your hopes might be, they might differ totally to my hopes. A person sitting at Umhlanga right now, his hopes are totally different to a person sitting in the Sheikh State, Chesterville. So if the hopes satisfies, if only the hopes of the people sitting in Umhlanga are the ones that are satisfied, that definitely means there's an exclusion, there's a societal exclusion. So I understand that it's very difficult as well in politics to satisfy across board. But we one day need to understand whose hopes were retained by this GNU. I'm not going to go into that. We want to move right along. Now you are currently the Minister of Finance. And you've been studying the ministry while you were sitting on the benches. You know the wrongs and rights, and you've just mentioned earlier on how you've basically made some adjustments. Now, the hopes now of everybody else that was a participant, or there is a participant in economic activities in KZN. How would you assure those particular people, those small and medium business people like us here in this media house, that there's great hopes for us? More especially, I will just throw this in as a dice. More especially with now the weakening entity like Ithala and a lot of other entities that we can mention, but we want to focus on Ithala because basically we viewed Ithala as our backbone of basically what's the resource. Ithala is easily accessible to us as small business people. Now, what hopes can you give to us and all the other people in that aspect?
I think with Ithala, we must be really wary that it's an inherited problem in the 7th administration. This is a problem that was created by the previous political leaders in the province. They allowed Ithala to get to the point of where it is. We've now got to fix that mess. And I think that in itself and the manner in which government as a collective in the province is now working together to come up with a solution to deal with the challenges of Ithala. I think that should give people hope. The fact that you've got different departments that are now being run by different political parties also makes us more aware of what each other is doing in that government of provincial unity, and we are still playing oversight of each other. The Premier plays oversight of me, I play oversight over Nomogugu, and so we check up on each other, where in the past we never had that in government.
Yeah. You see, Francois, the society at large, they always, I don't know if it's their political tokens or ploys, but they often run to say there is this strategic what they call hedge of the institutions that seek to support the masses, and the masses obviously being the small and medium business, enterprises. So there is this notion that, the bigger banks are basically killing Ithala for a reason, to weaken it as a financial institution that is seen as a backbone of the province. And when they make such presentations at times, they often say It is the very same white monopoly capitalists that are actually behind the Prudential Authority in the form of the what you call the repayment master to run such. They are also relating this year to VBS Bank, up in Limpopo as well. Because to be quite honest, we are not accountants. We don't know the numbers, but there is that notion to say the white monopoly capitalists are hedging all these backbone sort of like institutions that help support the economy of the masses. Would you not assent to that? I mean, would you perhaps not agree to that?
Well, look, I think firstly, VBS and Ithala are two totally different scenarios. VBS, there was corruption, there was money being stolen. Ithala...
I'm happy you've started your statement. I don't mean to interrupt you, because then I can conclude already that there is no corruption in Ithala.
So, the evidence I have, Ithala is not insolvent. Ithala, their assets exceed their liabilities.
Definitely.
That you can look in the last financial statements. The Auditor General's last report says Ithala is a going concern. Now, the Prudential Authority appointed the RA. The RA is a repayment authority that's supposed to go in and protect the investors' money in Ithala. Now, again, based on evidence, that hasn't happened. The RA, Johan Kruger, has gone in there and he has systematically shut down the bank. He has strangled the air out of the bank. So that today, we sit in a situation, Ithala employees weren't paid for January. SASSA grants can't be paid. Now, all of those salaries, if you earn a salary and you have a car loan,
Definitely.
your car loan goes off the bank. Your house loan goes off the bank. None of that's happening. And I raised this last year with the repayment authority, because myself and the Minister of Finance, the National Minister, we sat down and we came up with guarantees to protect everything that is deposited in the bank. The RA absolutely ignored it, and he has systematically destroyed the bank.
So under whose authority is he basically carrying out all such instruction?
If I had the answer, I'd attack that individual. The Prudential Authority is standing one side, like they are just too important to engage us. The Reserve Bank, the Deputy Governor General of the Reserve Bank, says to us, this is last year, that they're trying to protect Ithala. The word she used was they were going to bubble wrap Ithala to protect it.
Because
clearly, by appointing the PA and the PA then appointing the RA, they haven't done anything of the sort. So you have to ask yourself,
who's behind this?
What is behind this?
It's very sad.
Now, the information I get yesterday is there's a commercial bank that now has access to Ithala's depositors, phoning the depositors saying, why don't you come and open your account with us? Now, Ithala wouldn't do that, but the RA has been given access to that information.
So that information.
Because the PA insisted on it. Now you have to ask yourself, what is going on
So
here?
there is this group. Basically, we can conclude, and even if it's not officially so, because obviously I know you sit on an official position, but we can conclude hypothetically so that there is a hedge on Ithala, because we learned yesterday that there's this information that has been taken by this Johan Kruger and given to FNB, because I read about it, given to FNB so that the customers are taken there. So there's this group of people which we can call, even if they're not white, but we can call it's a systematic monopoly capitalism.
So let me
Do you agree to that, Francois?
I'm not going to classify it into race.
No.
But there are more questions than answers here.
No. I'm not subjecting it to race, but because even when we say the white monopoly capital, it's not literally white, but it could be it's basically now a term, because perhaps then there are people that are there. Perhaps we should say just a group of the monopoly capitalists,
Yes.
that are basically behind this here. Whether they're white or black, but then there is a group that is behind the downfall of Ithala.
There is something sinister
Thank you.
going on.
I think...
So let me give you another example. The minister, the national minister, Madiba. I have a very good relationship with him. Last year, he says to me, the PA is telling me the bank is insolvent. I then got all the information from the bank and I sent it to the minister's office. He then said to me, I'm getting information that people exposed politically, it's called PEP. People exposed politically have got loans with Ithala and they are not repaying those loans. So political people.
No.
I got Madiba a copy of all of that info. There is no such thing. Who is spreading this false narrative? Who is it?
No, we've learned of such. I think it was on the 5th administration that there were politicians that were basically exploiting the excess of funds in Ithala back then. But then I'm happy when you are sitting here as a head of treasury and you are mentioning that there has been little less or none of corruption at Ithala, because that means it's resuscitable. And I must say it once again that we applaud the efforts that you as a collective leaders in KZN are basically pouring through to assist in that aspect. One, the movement now goes into your relationship. I observe personally the very good relationship that you have with our traditional leader, the king, uMisizulu. What would his responsibility be at ensuring that such entities, because these are provincial entities, and he leads the nation, what would his role be, or what are his expectation or his influence will be into ensuring that Ithala remains substantively operational?
I think Silo's responsibility is to ensure that people remain calm. Allow the provincial government to get over this particular hurdle. We've got the action against the RA, the Repayment Authority, and we have the court case on Thursday.
Against Johan Kruger.
No, that's a separate issue.
Oh, okay.
The RA is a separate issue. On Thursday, the PA will present its case to have the bank liquidated. That is Thursday's court case. We were supposed to be in court today against the RA, but the judge struck it off the roll. Legal counsel is meeting with the judge president tomorrow to determine a date. So that's something that's still to come. And I think His Majesty's role is to ensure that there's calm and to ensure that the legal system follows its course. I think that is his particular role that he can fulfill.
Okay, no, definitely. Now, if we can just dissect a little into, I think with Ithala, all the viewers have actually got the gist of what's happening, or at least even an indication. Let us go to Ingonyama Trust now, which I think is also a generator when it comes to issues around the province. What is your role, or what should be the role of Ingonyama Trust into contributing into the revenue of the province with respects to KZN? And what is the relationship thereof with the Treasury Department? And the reason I'm asking this question, even perhaps it might not come across appropriately, but the thing is I want to find out if Ingonyama Trust will you view it as a liability to the province or to the government, or do you view it as one of the substantive backbone of economic, or what you call resource in KZN?
Well, I think firstly we must understand that the Ingonyama Trust doesn't fall under the mandate of the provincial government.
Okay.
It's a national mandate.
Oh,
so it doesn't, I have no insight into Ingonyama Trust, into their financials, anything like that. It is managed at a national level. But here's what I believe we need to explore. If we want to talk about economic freedom, and economic opportunities. One of the ways we can unlock that is by giving people land.
Okay.
We're just dealing with the expropriation bill now.
We'll talk about this, yes.
So if you want to unlock
Yeah.
economic opportunities, give people a title deed. You then have a piece of paper, you have a piece of property which has a value that you can then go to the commercial banks, the ones you were saying are up to no good. You can go,
I didn't say so.
You can go to the commercial banks with that piece of paper and you can borrow money. That becomes your guarantee. Otherwise, you don't have a guarantee. If you rent a piece of land or you on a piece of land that's given to you on a 99-year lease, you can't borrow against that. Ithala SOC is the only institute that will lend people money living on Ingonyama Trust land without the title deed. So there's an opportunity to unlock. So if you have your title deed, you can borrow money, you can open a business, you can borrow money, you can start farming. That becomes such a valuable key to unlocking economic opportunities.
So
that is something we need to explore.
There you are. It's my first time having a guest that actually speaks about the support of land redistribution or land allocation, because everybody always says, hey, we want land, we want land. I was just about to ask you, what do people do with this land after it has been allocated to them or after it's been given to them? And I also want to find out, the land that belongs to Ingonyama Trust, will that land also be viable to be redistributed?
Because to be expropriated.
Exactly, because I was just asking my other guest now that, we were asked a couple of years ago to basically donate the 5 rands when, do you recall that saga? Where we had to donate 5 rands to protect the Ingonyama Trust and what is this against the land, whatever. So my question runs there, again, creating a balance. Whose land must be taken and whose land must not be taken?
Well, look, that's a very complex conversation. But I think importantly, Ingonyama Trust, from what I understand, they're now issuing mining licenses. There's a whole lot of business going on inside the trust. So there's got to be revenue generation within that trust. I think the trust, to a degree, still plays a role when it comes to traditional leadership and the maintaining the culture of traditional leadership. One of the discussions I've had with His Majesty and I had with the late King was the possibility of creating an economic revenue generator where the royal household becomes a shareholder.
Yes,
and I'm looking at a model based on the Botswana Meat Corporation, which is something we're now exploring to a further extent, which would make the royal household more self-sustainable, so that whether the DA, the IFP, the ANC is in power, the king is not reliant on a political party to give him money. He's starting to generate his own revenue. And that then allows the Ingonyama Trust to actually start looking at empowering people through property ownership.
I was just about to ask that, because we keep learning, even with regards to the new formations, like in the MKP. I know you're not part of MKP, but when we do our research, we find out that, they now want to embed these traditional leaders into political positions, whereby they assume positions of leadership as the leader in society. So I'm quite happy that you basically share the very same sentiments with your opposition. But would it be possible, now as yourself as a politician, your own perspective, will it be possible whereby we develop a system where the what we call the kingdomship is obsolete or is isolated from all the political manifestations and stuff, just like in all the other first world countries? Yes. and some, is it possible in South Africa?
I believe it is. I believe that the model I'm talking about, and also what we need to do, is look at the tourist opportunities. I mean, it's just coming from Isantlawana, yes, and Shaka's Day, and we've got a wonderful history in KwaZulu-Natal. A history that's rich in information and in sites that people can visit. You have a lot of people across the world that are historians that love to travel. A discussion I've had with the British Embassy is the reintroduction of a British Airways flight from London directly to Durban. Because we were doing that in the past, and there was a lot of British tourists coming around and traveling. And then we need to create a center around the history of Zulu culture and King Shaka. We've started at the statue at the airport. Let's continue that.
Look, we've come to an end of this session, but there's still a lot of other issues that we need to discuss. And I wanted to give you more opportunity to elaborate more on the initiatives, and because I think they need to be supported. More especially, you come across as a believer of a holistic society, which needs to move holistically for developmental purposes. But thank you. Look, but here and there about the privatization of the ports and stuff, with Transnet, because we understand those, again, that those are our revenue generators. But hopefully you are going to visit us again, and we will carry on with this conversation. Due to time limitations, we've got to end it right here. And thanks very much, Baba Mhlekazi, for paying us a visit. Thanks very much. Yabo. For this session, I want you to tell our viewers that this is Politics Plus with Nkosi Zulu. They must subscribe on our YouTube channel and all our social media channels, looking at that camera.
This is Politics Plus. I've been on interview with Nkosi Zulu. And please log on to their social media website, engage. Let me hear what you have to say after today's engagement or some of the comments that Nkosi made. Let's get together, let's work together, let's build KZN.
Thanks very much.
Yabule. Of course.
Hey, Siyabonga Mhlekazi.